Mental Health Hub. In this week, our episode is looking at still the issues of substance use and mental health. And as we've always said, it is a profession. And a profession that has professionals doing this work. In our earlier episodes, as we have engaged over and over again, we have seen the complexity of dealing with mental disorders, and especially so, the substance use disorders. I've mentioned in our earlier episodes, what are the causes? What are the mental disorders or even the substance use disorders that we have? What are the predisposing factors? We have had life experiences. Today, I am privileged to interact with a professional. So I bring to you a professional who is in this field. She will be able to tell us for how long and what she has seen or what is her experience in the profession, especially in terms of prevention of substance use disorder. So the Mental Health Hub today is privileged to have a counseling psychologist who will tell us about herself and what she does.
Thank you, Dr. Pamela. My name is Sonali. As you've heard, I'm a counseling psychologist. I work with the Addictions Prevention and Rehabilitation Association of Kenya, which is APRAC. I've been in this field in addiction for the last 2 years. Since 2020, I found myself, I would say, through good fortunes in the field of addiction. When I came here to work as a counseling psychologist, my primary focus was on prevention. You've mentioned about treatment just a few minutes ago. There's a lot of focus in this country on treatment and rehabilitation, right? So statistics, I think there was a survey in 2016 that was done by NACADA, which showed the capacity of the rehab centers currently is 10,000 beds. The amount of people who need help is 400,000, which is urgent help. We're talking about tomorrow, this number would have risen, okay? So yesterday this was 400,000 people needed, so 1 to 40. Now, as much as we're going to work towards getting this 400,000 people treatment, we also need to look at the start of it, where addiction starts. And we've noticed through my experience, I've seen that we have children from as early as age 7 who have been experimenting through will, because drug peddlers, as I would like to bluntly say, are everywhere. You can walk out of here, be on the street, and you will find somebody selling a blunt, right? But we need these young children to understand that addiction is preventable from the word go. They don't even know what addiction is. When they're smoking that blunt, they don't know what addiction is. So when I talk about prevention, I'm talking of a very scientific, evidence and research-based program. There are modules in prevention. So the idea that I have in mind, and I'm sure a lot of other people in this profession are looking at the same thing, is that we would like to have a school-based intervention. From children of the age of 7 up to, let's say, about 21, we're talking about even up to tertiary schools, right? We need to have psychoeducation. First things first. They need to know what is addiction, because they don't know, right? Somebody is smoking a blunt, they don't know what it is doing to their brain, what it is doing to their body. To them, it is just something they have picked up on the street. Or they have seen their favorite movie artist or their favorite musician on the TV, on YouTube. Nowadays, a lot of digital media is being used to advertise these things, and they just are socially learning. So psychoeducation, we want them to understand what is addiction. And then now, there are a lot of risk factors that are related to addiction. What are these predisposing factors that would make one child pick up that bottle of alcohol and the other will not? We have all this that is scientific data. We have that data. It's not like I'm talking of new things, right? We have this data. Now, since we have it, we need to educate. So the first level will be school-based interventions. from a young age, the child grows up knowing these things. We also are able to analyze these risk factors. We're able to do a research, which is very important in our country. We do a research across the country. We want to understand what are the risk factors that are being seen among the children and the youth of our country, and also the impact of addiction on these children and the youth. A lot has been done about the older people who are already seeking treatment. So once we move from the school-based interventions, the second thing would be the family-based interventions, because family is the root of a lot of addiction problems. I'm sure even in your professional experience, you would realize that somebody who needs help, the family also needs help, right? Which is one thing I do as a practicing counseling psychologist. That's one thing I'm currently doing. I do family therapy for the families of addicts. So addicts are in rehab centers, right?
Yeah.
But what happens to the families that are at home?
Where they came from.
Yes. So if that person in the rehab center is going through psychosocial counseling, the family also needs the same psychosocial counseling. They also need psychoeducation. They need to understand what this drug of choice of theirs has done to the body and brain of that addict. And then we need to now come and build the bridges that were initially burned by the addicts and the family, so that after the 90-day program, which is the recommended one in Kenya, when the addict leaves, the family is able to meet them at the same level, right? So as much as right now we're doing that family therapy, when we look back, it is also important to do prevention in the family through psychoeducation, right? So the first step, the first tier would be the school-based intervention. And then we look at the family-based intervention. And now, my family comes together with your family. With your family, the whole family builds a community. So we have community-based interventions for prevention. And we are able to educate the masses through that, so that 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, the number of addicts who need urgent help is not that ratio of 1 to 40 that is currently in the country.
Okay. So I hear you emphasize a lot about prevention, and you have identified the various entry points for prevention.
Yes.
Looking at the school-based, looking at the family, and looking at the community. Those are entry points, and I believe when you talk about community, you are looking also at workplaces.
Yes, yes.
What do you think about workplaces?
Definitely. In fact, a lot of people that I have encountered here, it is not even the family that is sending them to rehab. It's actually the employers and their HR managers, which we totally appreciate, that they're able to see there's a problem. But then how many people in this country are getting that help? How many employers are able to look at this person and say, now, addiction is a disease. They need to get treatment, and then we can bring them back. It would happen that an employer would find somebody who doesn't come to work every day. Alternatively, when they come to work, they're coming late. They're not on their best behavior. So you'd find the employer, and I wouldn't blame them, but the employer would be tempted to fire this person. Instead, what can we do? First of all, let's educate the workplaces. Once we've educated these people, the employer, the HR manager, they also know that as much as addiction is preventable, they're able to also identify the people in that organization who are already in the trap of addiction. Yes, and then we are telling them, now, this is where you can come and get help. And this is how it works. So you also can come in for family therapy. It's not just, by the way, let me clarify, the family that has to get help. If you are my colleague, you're equally disturbed by my behavior at work, isn't it? If I'm addicted and I don't do my responsibilities the way I'm supposed to, you as my colleague have to bear the burden of my work, right?
Because at the end of the day, the work has to be done.
Yes. So you're also suffering. You also need some support. That is why in family therapy, it's not just the family. We're looking at spouses, we're looking at workmates, we're looking at even friends. Because friends are very important in social structure. So everybody needs to get some sort of support.
As we talk about workplaces and friends, the same friends could be influencing my use.
Yes.
I don't know how that.
I understand. That is why my emphasis, once again would be on psychoeducation. And if one person is able to get help, in fact in this field I've noticed a lot of people who leave rehab, when they come out and they're able to give their testimonies, they actually instill hope in other people, right? So if we're in a workplace and I get help, I get treatment at the rehab center, and you see that now I'm a functional person in the workplace, I will also be able to motivate you to go forward.
That's where workplaces are coming up with champions.
Yes.
Currently, I've had that one come out a lot, where they are creating treatment champions or something like that. When one has come from treatment and they have been supported by a workplace or the employer, this person is identified and empowered to be the link between the employer and the other staff, so that they can be able to pass information, so they can also be able to support others, and it is also helping reduce stigma. When I talk about stigma, I don't know as a professional where you think, how you think stigma is contributing.
Let me give you a real life incident that I have encountered. I had a father come to me because I do family therapy. The child was in rehab, and I'm talking about a 22-year-old boy, okay, just around that age. The father came to me and said, you know what, this is not what you're making me believe, that addiction is a disease. My neighbor alinitupilia vitu, you know, we now start talking about witchcraft coming in, because we are not ready to accept that addiction is a real thing, it's a disease, somebody needs help. Now you see, when somebody already has that sort of attitude, they're not willing to share with other people that, look, my son is in recovery, or when the son comes out of rehab, that they're able to celebrate that, which is very important for an addict, celebrating the small wins. So psychoeducation, once again, is very important. That is why when we look at the prevention science, we talk about all this. Stigma is also one of the things that is handled through prevention, right? It is already ingrained in the older people's minds right now that addiction is something to do with witchcraft, right? Or it's a choice, but it's not. Now think about this: the future generation will start talking about addiction as something that is very normal in terms of it being a disease, right? So there is no stigma attached to it. We can sit down with people and have normal conversations about addictions. That is what prevention aims to have in the future.
So that we demystify these myths, so that we have the correct information. People are given the correct information about substance use. What are the risk factors? What are the comorbidities or the other diseases that could underlie or even complicate management? And once this is done, as you are saying, which I concur, it will be, the society will be able to appreciate the fact that this is a disease. And as you say, it is informed by science. Science has proven that it is a brain disease. Just as we have other theories helping us understand addiction, as well as the medical theory that also explains it as a disease. And even disease, then, it is not choice. Nobody chooses to be sick.
Right.
So if this person is sick, they can also appreciate the fact that I am sick and I need to get help, and don't feel bad or stigmatize self because of a sickness that is not your own making.
Absolutely.
And that way, as we say, prevention will be actualized to some great extent. I look at this and I ask myself, okay, that could be knowledge that is available with the professionals. Those few of us, or few of you psychologists, counselors, psychiatrists, the medics, maybe now teachers, who have this understanding that actually what we are dealing with is not a curse. What we are dealing with is not witchcraft, but science has told us what it is, and this is the way to go about it. Do we have the critical mass to be able to drive this?
Now, as a country, I would say we are moving towards that. So this is what I envision, okay? I have the knowledge right now, for example. You have the knowledge. but the person watching this probably doesn't even know what we're talking about. Right? So how do we move on? And we start, this is what I have envisioned myself, that we start with the research. Okay? Obviously, we'll do a pilot in maybe a few counties, let's say 5 or 7 counties. We know that there are a few areas in the country that have a lot of impact of addiction. And then we have some that addiction is probably not even talked about. So we can sample a few counties, do a research, where we're looking at the risk factors and we're looking at the impact. Okay? Once we do that pilot research, we come down, we analyze that data. We have that data, and then now we look at the prevention science that is available, the modules that are available, right? And then now we tailor it to the Kenyan population. Then this research, obviously, gradually will be done throughout the country. But once we have that data, the initial data, we now start a pilot phase of these prevention programs. So we start with a few schools in the counties that were initially used for the research. Now, when we are talking about schools, we first need to start training the teachers themselves, because a teacher might be given that prevention module and they themselves don't even know what addiction is, right? So we first hold a training of the teachers. The teachers come in for an intensive short course. It's not supposed to be very long, right? Because this would be continuous. Even the teachers need to be continuously trained, right? The teachers come in for a training, and then these teachers are now able to go and train the students, right? So once we are following that protocol, then eventually, when we've gone through the entire country, we have these programs in almost every school in the country. The children are able to talk about it. And once this sparks a conversation within the family, we now move to the families. My family is talking about it. Your family is wondering, what is this one talking about? We now move to the community. So we are back to our initial 3 ties: school, family, and community. And eventually, the whole country is aware of what we're talking about.
As you talk about community, I can't stop thinking about the religious community.
Those ones, in fact, are, I would say, a very good resource. Very good resource, right? There's a lot of myths around addiction, so the religious community has to come together. And when we pass this information to them, when we psychoeducate them, they again, once they go back to their specific churches, temples and mosques, are able to pass the information to their congregation. Remember, there are a lot of families back in the rural areas whose first point of connection is the church, is the temple, or is the mosque. So when they have a problem, they will go to the pastor, they will go to the priest that is there. And that is where they would seek help from the first point of connection, right? So once this happens, the religious leader there already has been psychoeducated. We are able to talk about addiction to them, and they are now able to move that person to the right direction. Okay, go to APRAC, they will get you treatment in the correct rehabilitation center. Go to this place, there's prevention science, so that your children don't go into the same trap.
And of course, it will also reduce the stigma, because they are the same people who will be able to speak from their exalted place, the place of leadership, and be able to tell people this is not a curse.
Yes.
Be able to tell people embrace the person who is struggling in the substance use, embrace the family that is, so that these people can feel there is hope. We are not stigmatized, we are not pushed away because of the fact that we have this condition, or I have this condition. When the leader of this religious group is speaking, they are not kind of pointing at it as if I made a choice, or I am cast out. The gods don't like me. I'm evil. You know, when we are able to bring that out, it can be able to help us.
In fact, you will notice,
Yes.
if we have somebody in the family that is suffering from maybe cancer or needs a surgery, a lot of the social support comes from the church, from the temple, from the mosque, right? Because that is now identified as a disease. So look at the future when addiction will be regarded as a disease by even them. The social support that we are talking about will come even from the churches, the temples, and the mosques, which is very important. Social support is very important in any psychological issue, be it addiction, be it a mental health disorder.
And of course, what I hear you saying is that you as the professionals, you are looking at this entry point to the religious sectors to be able to go and offer the correct information.
Yes.
You are not telling the religious leader to get out of their role for them to be the ones passing the information, but building capacity within or identifying professionals within their community who they can give the platform to pass this information.
Yes, you have nailed it, absolutely right. So if I as a professional can go and speak to that religious leader, I'm not telling them to ditch that role of being a religious leader. I'm just empowering them, right? Adding more knowledge to this particular religious leader, and then they are able to pass on that knowledge now. So we need to work together as the professionals and the other members of the community, be it even political leaders, even religious leaders. We're even talking about community health volunteers. Everybody needs to come together to work with the professionals. As a professional, I have studied this. I have that data. I have the knowledge, I have the information, but I want to pass it on to the rest of the community so that we're able to get in touch with every single person, right? So that addiction is no longer looked upon as something evil, as you mentioned, or a sin, or a curse.
Okay. And the more we pass this information, the more we empower the society, then better for the country.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, everyone has a responsibility to contribute towards the development of our nation.
Absolutely.
We have strategic goals that have been set. I like looking at the Vision 2030. It's a blueprint that is to be achieved by each one of us in this country.
Right.
We have a responsibility individually to contribute towards the achievement of the Vision 2030.
Yes.
We have global goals that we have signed to.
Yes.
You know, being a citizen of this nation, that the country has signed to be part of the UN goals. It means I have signed, isn't
Right,
it?
of course. Each one of us is part of the country.
We are part of the country, isn't it? So we have a responsibility towards ensuring that we achieve the universal health coverage.
Yes.
And it begins with you and me. It begins with you, my listener. It begins with you as you watch, sitting at the workplace, sitting even in your own space. If you are watching this, you have a responsibility to ensuring that our nation achieves the Vision 2030. You have a responsibility to contribute to the Vision 2063 as an African. You have a responsibility to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals and many other goals that the world has set, all geared towards ensuring that we have a population that is healthy. Because as it is, health is a human right. You have a right to quality health. And if you have a right, you begin first of all by being responsible as a person, knowing what prevails for you, knowing the part that you have to play, knowing you yourself that you have your life and the life of the other people needs to be made comfortable by making them healthy. So in terms of drug demand reduction, in terms of dealing with the mental health, in terms of ensuring complete wellness, we all have a role to play. And it is not getting better. Statistics indicate that we have an increase of non-communicable diseases. And mental health is one of the identified non-communicable diseases that are compromising the wellness of people, that are leading to mortality, that are leading to low quality of health. And that means one person helped means a step made towards achievement of sustainable development goals. So my viewer, I want to say that you have a responsibility to yourself. The professionals are available. They have taken that step of building their skills, building their knowledge, so that they can be there to help us to navigate around health, and more so mental health, and of course including dealing with substance use disorders. And the emphasis, as you have heard the professional today, Sonali, a counseling psychologist, prevention is very, very key. Reach out to the professionals. Our contacts have been provided. You can be able to reach out for help, because as the African adage says, the child who lifts their hands is the one who is lifted from the ground. When you are walking around and you find a child crying, if the child lifts up their hands, as an adult, you have a responsibility to pick that child and help them understand, support them to stop even crying. So in the same way, you have a responsibility to lift your hands by seeking help, by identifying that you have a need. And then we reach out to our professionals who will guide us to where the services are, who will also be able to use their skills and knowledge to help us navigate around the turbulence that is caused by substance use. So I want to stop there and say that reach out to us, like this video, share the same so that you can pass the knowledge to another person, and subscribe so that every other time an episode is uploaded, you can be able to receive it and be able to interact with the same. See you in the next episode.